Hi, everyone. We hope you've enjoyed your CEDIA Expo virtual experience thus far. Welcome to our wonderful panel today, Connecting Skilled Trades, our tech talk, where we're going to explore the business challenges associated with the lack of awareness for careers within the integration industry and a shrinking availability of skilled workers. I'm your session moderator, Samantha Ventura. I'm the CEDIA Vice President of Education and Training, and I've got two great panelists with us today. I'd like to introduce them to you now. First, we have David Whitney, our CEDIA Director of Certification. David, please give us a little bit of an introduction to your position at CEDIA and who you are.
All right. Well, I have been with CEDIA for the last 6 years. CEDIA was actually my first job out of college a number of years ago, where I was exposed to the technology integration industry, the passion that people have for what they do. My own career has always been in the nonprofit sector. I spent a number of years in Asia doing education development projects for an NGO there. Returned to Indianapolis and returned to CEDIA, where I've been in the education and certification department. A big part of my role is working with volunteers, subject matter experts, taking the knowledge, the experience that they have, turning that into products, be it career pathways, credentials, standards, things that the whole industry can use. And especially as we think about people starting their career or transitioning their career, really tangible things to get a first step into the industry.
Fantastic. And yes, of course, I work personally with David, and you know, he's just such an integral member of our education team, and certification truly drives what we do within the design of our education. So welcome, David. We also have Kristopher Quaale. He does all the design and sales at Integrated Lifestyles. Chris, we're so happy to have you here too. Kind of give us a little bit of an introduction to who you are.
Yeah, I am, like you said, Samantha, I do design and sales here at Integrated Lifestyles. We're a small business, about 7 people here in Dallas, Fort Worth, custom integrator. And I've been here for, I think, going on 2 years and then 3 full years in the CI world. I actually came from the education world, where I was a band director for 9 years. I taught for 5 years. And then went and got my master's in conducting at the University of North Texas, taught for another 4 years, and then said that was a wrap. And then came, was always very intrigued by the audio video world, and had some connections there, and it's been really, really fun ever since. And yeah, working with clients, designing solutions, providing quotes, and making sure that clients are really happy with their technology.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm just so thrilled to have both of you here. I think this is such a great topic to discuss. And I think that the difference with your backgrounds and with mine are going to add a lot of a rich element to this particular topic. And this is a topic that's near to dear to my heart within CEDIA and just with what we do in general. And also as we look to continue to strengthen the knowledge base of our industry as a whole. So to those of you attending, I'm so happy to have you here. At the bottom of the screen, you're going to notice a chat function. It's got a Q&A function within it. Please make sure to put any and all questions that you have into that function, and we'll do our best to answer those at the end of the session. So just a little about my background. I've been in education for 25 years. I came from California, came over to Indianapolis, and have worked for CEDIA for about 2.5 years, but I love everything about education, and that fused with everything wonderful about our industry has made this a perfect fit. So let's go ahead and get into some of the more specifics of this particular topic. So I want to talk to our panelists a little bit about what a skilled trade is. Let's go ahead and pull up what I have to kind of look at the difference between traditional education as we've known it within a 4-year institution versus a trade school. Keep in mind some of these numbers may not be exact in terms of what your experience has been, but they're generally pretty close. I'm going to go over them a little bit in a second. But traditionally, how we define a skilled trade is really just a trade within having a vocational trade that you would be very skilled at doing related to anything that requires you to have a knowledge base that allows you to be more highly trained into something than maybe the next person, or something that's caused you to have to go through a program to make sure that you know something very specific to what the end result should be. So when we look at some of the issues with skilled trades in the past, we've recognized that we went from the 1950s, 60s idea of a vocational school, a trade school, into much more of a real push towards people going towards a 4-year degree. And almost there was a little bit of a stigma attached to going through a trade school, a vocational school. It was very odd because we still needed all of those jobs. We needed those people within our everyday lives and things that we were looking to have accomplished for us. But we saw a shift. And because of that, we saw a little bit of a downturn in probably a lot of people going into what we would consider a trade school, vocational school, which of course would require someone to have a skilled trade under their belt. Then we started to notice now coming out of the past decade and 15 years where we've recognized people going much more into skilled trades, vocational trades, going into a vocational school, recognizing that there is a need there, and recognizing for a lower amount of money and not trying to get into debt, you can come out with a wonderful career, a viable career, a good opportunity, and make right about the same with a lot less costs incurred, and have a fun career as well. So it's super important as we continue to push this knowledge base and what we're trying to do, that we continue to really support within our workforce what this means for our skilled trades, but also from a business owner's perspective, how we can support the industry as a whole and the professional development attached to this particular topic. So I kind of wanted to talk to you guys about that. That was a little bit of a brief overview, and that picture clearly showed, at the end, you're kind of making the same, but the ways of getting there are much different in terms of the costs you're incurring. So let's go ahead and, talk to Chris a little bit about this. What drew you to the industry? What made you decide to go from a traditional 4-year school into skilled trade?
Yeah, no, that's a great question, Samantha, and that is your chart really hits home with my experience, because I chose the 4-year college degree and then doubled down and went and got a master's degree. So my student loan debt is fantastic.
Oh.
And so that is it is one of those things that I wish. I've thought a lot about this over the last several years, being in this world now. I'm the only person with a college degree at my company. That is, I think that speaks volumes to the lack of need to have a college degree to be able to have a successful career.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, that was such an eye-opening moment, and can be very frustrating to realize that I made this other choice to go into the traditional thing. But to your point too, there is there has been a stigma, and I kind of grew up with that stigma of, oh, you're not going to college. Oh, what are you going to do with your life? Are you going to work at fast food restaurant your whole life, the kind of thing, and make minimum wage and all these things. And that was the stigma, that was the driving force behind deciding to go after a degree, going to college. It was just the natural next step. There was never a discussion of, well, you need this skill set to be able to be a contributing member of society. It was like, well, you finish high school and now you go to college, and then you kind of figure it out after that. It was college in a lot of ways is an extension of what you're doing in high school, and it's a very expensive step to kind of go, like, for me, well, I spent all this money, got all this degree, I got these degrees, and now I'm not really utilizing that skill set per se. There's a lot of things that obviously you learned in college and degrees that are very, very appropriate and have helped me be a good professional in this world, but it's not necessary anymore. And I think it's really important to be honest with younger people that you don't have to go this college route. You don't have to, if you're not sure, if there's an inkling of doubt as to what you really want to do, hang on for a second. There are other opportunities, and it's not your typical. I think people think vocational school and they think, oh, I'm going to be a car mechanic, or I'm going to be a plumber. These, like, kind of not lower level kind of jobs, but it's more of there's stigmas maybe associated with those things. Whereas what we can do here in the CI world, in the AV world, there's plenty of potential for growth. That was one of the other things that I really got, maybe, I don't know if disheartened's the right word, that might be strong, but the lack of potential growth in the teaching world, both professionally and financially, is not even close to what we can do here in this world. And so that was another big reason for me to join this thing and leave the teaching world and kind of say goodbye to. I mean, I'd been wanting to be a band director since I was 15,
Hmm.
and
And
then
then you switched over.
I switched over, and it's great. It's a great decision. It's one of those things where you can't really change the past, but if there's something that like I can say here to help someone not make the same decision, because it's not a mistake, it's just your life, right? But if to make a decision to go, you know what, I kind of like all this other stuff. There's no need for me to go to a traditional 4-year school
Mhm.
because I don't want to be saddled with all this debt.
I think you brought up some really good points. I always like to say, because everybody listening, or people who know me, not everybody listening, but people who know me know that I actually value traditional education as well. And I think that there's a happy medium with both. And I've often said, if people have talked to me in depth, that, we talk about going through our programs, we talk about what it looks like to go through a program that would at the end really train you to be so skilled in whatever trade you're looking to go into, but specifically our industry, of course. And then why not look at it as like, that's your base. And if you decided later to go back and look at schools or classes for business or for other things that maybe we couldn't provide in such a detailed way, I don't think we have to be exclusive always of one another. I think it can be a happy medium. I just don't like always how there has been such a, as you mentioned, stigma attached to our skilled trades in general. And I think that there's a place for both, honestly. And I do think enriching our education, our worldview is super, super important, no matter where you end up or what you go into. And I think that often we are really overcome by this sense of, I better not do it this way because I'm figuring out that it looks badly to this group or this person, and that's just not always the case. David, though, I think this is a good time for you to jump in about this. Quickly talk to us a little bit about certifications, and from your perspective, do they add this validity and a level of being meaningful that helps with the credibility piece of going into a skilled trade?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the word certification is used in a lot of different settings. So it's helpful to clarify what we're talking about, because everybody knows if you hear, a licensed contractor, someone has a degree in business administration, you have kind of an instant picture in your head. With certification, unlike a license, it's not required by the government. And so you really have to look to the what's the credibility of the organization behind certification, and what did the person have to do to earn it.
Mm-hmm.
So, and a key distinction between certification and a degree is that it's more narrowly focused on a specific skill. What are the tasks? What's the knowledge and skills needed to do that? And so it becomes really important to measure that competency level. You can think of, careers, trades all over the world where they need to measure this. They need to do it well. There's health and safety. There is an international standard that's been created to say, how can you do a certification program that accurately assesses people's competence? And so that's something that's it's laid out there, and it's a very comprehensive thing. And when it's done right, it brings a lot of validity to the certification.
So you brought up such a good point. I just want to hit on this really quickly. Wow, I wish we had hours to talk about this topic, the idea of competence. And our good friend Peter Aylett within our industry, we talk about this all the time. We did a podcast with our other friends, Walt Zerby and Ed Wank at CEDIA, and it was so well received, because we do talk about what it means to be competent. And people are going to be listening maybe to this panel and thinking, or watching the panel and thinking, okay, so at the end, David, you're still saying there has to be some sort of certification or degree. And what we're trying to say is there has to be assessment at the end, so we can keep a standard there. Standards help us get better. They drive us to want to know more knowledge, and they keep it a level playing field and fair within the industry, to know that we're not just okay competing with the DIY or the Craigslist ad. Hey, I'm going to do it for $20. It's like, well, it's going to fall off your wall. So we need to make sure that we're also associating what we do with some real credibility. So I'm glad you bring up the word competence, because I think the learning, the knowledge, all of it goes into this idea of, are we going to really be able to say, this is what we want you to look like if you are competent in this industry? And I think we do. And that's where we're coming back to that idea of having these certifications.
Well, and kind of just very quickly, the idea of a certification is so, David, like you said, very specific. You're going after a specific skill set, a specific thing. Whereas if you go into, I mean, how many classes in your college degree did you just have to take to fulfill some sort of requirement that you don't use directly? It's not wasted time, but it's not efficient time to train you for your career. Whereas a certification is like, you're going to learn you're going to learn networking, or you're going to learn, how audio flow works and all these kinds of things. It's very specific and gives you a much more concrete, like reliable, this is exactly what I'm doing. And I think that's super important.
You've
Yep.
segued into a good point though. And this is one thing, when I was first hired at CEDIA, one of the best conversations I had was with a member who said, I have done so well technically for so many years. It wasn't until 20 years into it that I realized I had never really taken a business class. Succession planning had never been a part of my repertoire of learning. I didn't know how to hire and fire well. To me, technicians were kind of a dime a dozen. They come through. If we don't train them as well, we might be able to find another one. It'll be okay. And then they were assuming that somebody was going to get trained just by the other person in the truck working with them when they went on a job. So I think that there is sometimes we assume also that within our industry, as they're going through and doing their certifications, that there's not room for other learning to happen. And I do think it goes back to us then pushing that as well, that while you're in the industry, while you're working, recognize that as you're even supporting the industry through supporting maybe younger people coming in or career changers, it's also important for you to be looking at your own knowledge base and ways to support their education is to know that you need to. And so this hits the good point about the business owner piece to this that we're going to talk about in a little bit. So I'm glad you brought that up, Chris. Let's go ahead and look at some of the highest paying job categories right now. I'm super excited about talking about this because I'm going to pull up a slide in a second. Here it comes. And we look at right now, or right around now, these highest paying job categories that require 2 years or less of schooling. And if you think back to the slide we showed in the beginning, one thing you would note is it looked pretty expensive for the trade school, the vocational school, going through that skilled trade. That was not necessarily typical of every cost we have, and certainly not, our programs at CEDIA or some of the other places you might go. We charge a lot less. That was a range, of course. But when you're looking at what you can get out of, paying for the certification programs or things like that within the skilled trades, sometimes you're talking about, learning things, as Chris mentioned, that were very, very specific to what you might want to do. And in our case, it's wonderful because if you look at right now, these highest paying job categories, we get to hit 2 of them and we get to put them together. It's fantastic. Technology mingled with the skilled trades, right? Can we ask for anything better? We're looking at being very technically savvy, knowledgeable, with a strong competence in what it means to do things correctly, to advise clients well, and to know how to do that using the technology that's modern day. But not only that, to be able to possibly predict even what's coming down the pike. No one wants to get out there talking to their client, put something in, and then know that in 3 to 5 years, that's going to have to be updated or switched. Now, some of those things we can't control, but when we can with knowledge, we need to do the best we can by, knowing what we need to know about what needs to happen coming down the pike. So I'm interested to hear from both of you a little bit about this. Chris, in your time within the industry, have you seen a big change, or have you seen, technology more from one thing into the other that's been fairly aggressive or interesting to you? Or has it kind of been just a natural culmination of where we are now, where we had come from? What is your thought on this?
Yeah, no. So only being in the industry for 3 years, I haven't seen a massive change in how things are done and the technologies that are available. But at the same time, we're always cognizant, and we have often these conversations with our clients. We go, think like literally tomorrow, everything may change. So it's the preparation factor that I think is super important. And then there's things like to take a very specific example, 8K. 8K is all the rage and it's coming out and whatever. There's no 8K content. There's a lot of it's a catchphrase more than an actual real tangible technology, right? And but we have to be prepared for that. We have to be prepared to go, this is what's happening. Throw that out. We have to be prepared to go, this is going to change. Things are going to be different. And what we're finding is that even if it's not consumer ready, we have to be prepared for when it is consumer ready, so that the second it does become okay, 8K is out, let's do this thing. We can't go, oh shoot, what's 8K and how do we do it and what kind of things do we need to have a process in place to be prepared for everything that comes up. That's why simple things like providing the right wire for future readiness kind of things is so important, because again, things like category cable may eventually become obsolete. There are certain things that die away in the industry. But as long as we're thinking open-mindedly and thinking forward, I think that's really important. So then eventually when the end user becomes ready for it and it becomes something that is accessible to them, that we are ready to support them in that, and then not only just from like the consumer level, but we as installers and technicians and integrators, we have to be ready to provide that tool for these clients.
Absolutely. And even during this pandemic, which some of us thought would last maybe 3 weeks, a month, 6 months or 6 weeks, now we're into half a year here. And we've now recognized that to move with the change will be probably requiring of us to think outside the box a little bit. It's not a bad thing. It's just different. And for some people who don't love change, which is not really the change, it's the transition, as we know, which is that emotional attachment to what we're actually having to get on board with. That's hard. And so we provide a lot of opportunity for, people to learn about those next level things. And it really is our duty within this industry. We get strong when we get stronger together, to provide those opportunities for people to learn from one another. That's why these wonderful conferences we're having, obviously Expo, a labor of love, and we're proud of what we offer, and we're proud of this particular conference because we get to do just that. But I'm also interested to hear from you, David. What have you seen in terms of the culmination of where, how we've ended up with certification? Have you seen a big change, even in the credibility of it or the desire to have it? Or has it kind of stayed about the same, or kind of had a lull and then came back? What are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, and I think certifications have been a great fit for our industry. They'll continue to be a fit. Even thinking about the ongoing education piece that we're talking about, that's usually built into a certification is that, every few years it's going to expire, and so you need to take your CEUs. You need to retest something so you stay competent. It's in a way it's built into that process. I think a lot of people in our industry have come in with a DIY mindset to their learning, and a learn as you go, which fits really well with the certification model, that you don't need to stack everything 2 years and then you can get out on the job site. Certifications work well when they're paired with on-the-job training. Here's a small target. Here's your first step into the industry. You need to expand your skill set a little bit, move horizontally, add things. If we look at the IT certification world, it's a very successful as they add, specific, this coding language or to work on these systems. The other part of that is knowing a product specific, being certified to install this product, to program it. So combining the product with the skill-based certification is a great fit. The other trend here, I think for CEDIA, the residential industry at least, in the last few years is we're really growing up in a sense. CEDIA has been around 30 years. We've been doing certifications for 20 years. Compared to many trades, it's a much younger industry. But we're coming to a stage now where we're writing standards, best practices, things that we could even test to. And a lot of people talk about earning our place at the table with the architects, the contractor, the designer, and being able to have our own professional certifications that are accreditation level quality. They have some teeth in them, that we can stand right there next to them and say, yep, we're taking our CEUs. We abide by a code of conduct, a code of practice. And so we belong at this table, and we're accountable to the work that we do.
Absolutely. That's such a good point of view to have too, and a great perspective about, what it means to have that knowledge base, but also it's the expectation. I think, this is a great segue as we start to talk about a business owner, what this means to the business owner, what it means to strong integration firms. And, as I mentioned earlier, sometimes you'll have somebody who's been so technically savvy, so wonderfully trained. It's in their first nature to always be wanting that knowledge about the next technical something amazing, anything coming down the pike, and they will be so well versed in the relevancy of it. The application, though, sometimes becomes a tougher sell in terms of how does it then integrate within the other pieces within the field itself. For example, could you absolutely speak to the different levels within it of, the core pieces of the laws, of how it gets implemented, what's coming down the pike in terms of changes. We look at some of the education we put out there, and often people will come to us and say, well, how do I know that this is going to be the most relevant that it could be? And it's like, well, we wrote a white paper on it. We have standards attached to it. This is the best that you could have in terms of the knowledge we have right now, but we will continue to revise if we have to. But from a business owner's perspective, we often talk about the professional development piece, and it is really a holistic understanding of how important it is to support this idea of skilled trades. So the more you support that, and within your own integration firms, whether they're a small organization or a much larger, that professional development of the people you have coming in is not a sunk cost. It is something that then fuels more profitability for you, because it's a credibility thing. You know that when you place people out on behalf of you and your integration firm, they know what they are doing. They have gone through a certification program. They are highly skilled. This is not just something they learned off a video on YouTube. We actually put a lot into, with our subject matter experts, the knowledge that went into the classes and the whole program in general. So I just think it's so important to remind people it is a cycle that really starts with a firm understanding of how important it is to support this idea of competence within the industry, and all that entails. And also understanding, as a business owner, you have to support what it means to be competent as a business owner as well. That then fuels the understanding that technicians and what we do to support them coming in will then make this more of a viable career of opportunity for people looking at it. It's like, they do have pathways of professional development when they go into organizations. This is a viable career opportunity for me. So it all fits together. It's little pieces of the puzzle. And I do see it getting better and better. And it does often start with this idea of making it a viable career opportunity attached to real certifications. I am interested really quickly to hear from you, Chris, and then we'll move into our last piece here. But what do you do within your own organization to support this idea of professional development that in itself then supports this idea of this being a very viable career opportunity, and a support of it as a skilled trade?
Well, I think first, I think it's really important that the words that you're using in terms of career versus job.
Yeah.
And I think that the fact this is career oriented, I think is the connotation of that automatically goes, oh, I'm in this for the long haul. I'm not here to just kind of go from job to job to job. Like, this is something I can invest in. My company can invest in me, and then I can invest all of that information into supporting clients and making the best experience for all these people. We started doing the last month or two, every Wednesday morning. Everybody comes in about 30 minutes earlier than normal, and we have a tech training session. Whether it's something that is a review of a job that we did recently, and go, hey, this went really well. This is how areas of where we can improve. Or even this week, we literally spent, or I guess it was last week, we spent an hour going over how to terminate coax and Cat 6 again, just because, hey, it's never too late to really reinforce these ideas. I'm a big John Wooden fan, the former UCLA head coach. And if you haven't read his book, The Pyramid of Success, that is a must kind of thing, especially if you are an owner or a leader of any sort. His knowledge and his explanation of everything is beautiful. And one of the things he talks about is he would teach his players every year how to put their socks on.
Mm-hmm.
And you think, like, college players, oh, I know to put socks on, I know to put socks on. But no, the way in which you put the socks on is the UCLA way, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so we talk a lot about the integrated lifestyle's way of doing things.
Mm-hmm.
And these are, if you have the foundation to do all these things, then that's how you continue to do the continuing ed, and that's how you continue to learn and develop your skill and develop your career and move up the chain, so to speak. And the other thing we do is we recognize people that are really investing themselves into their self-education and go, hey, you've really been, you figured this out on your own. We're now going to send you to a training. We're going to send you to a certification, so that you as an employee and are investing in yourself, which is investing in the company. Well, the company's then going to invest in you to be able to take that certification, so that you have that accreditation. And I think that's a super important way to work and have a
A plan.
Yeah.
I do. I believe it's a plan. It's a very important piece of it where you're saying to yourself, okay, so I can also support this in, might not have as much money for your professional development year one, but by year three, we work together to look at what this looks like. It is a pathway of continued learning. And I know we're going to run out of time, and I am so sad because there's so much more to say. But I do want to hit on really quickly top trends, what we think coming down the pike. We have to do a fast fire 10-second. I know what I'm going to say. Mental health is big. Bioadaptive lighting, all these kinds of pieces that we thought were big before are now going to be really big as we look at work and home being our central nucleus of what we do everything in. What are your thoughts, Chris?
Yeah, really quickly, I think lighting is a huge thing. I think we're taking over the lighting industry. We got to figure that out, and then just the home networks are just with everything happening. That is the biggest thing to kind of go after, I think, right now.
Good. David?
Chris, you stole mine.
Oh,
And
sorry.
mine actually comes, we just did a survey of, what are the top requested specialty certifications? What do people feel is really important and what do they want to focus on? And what came out? It was networking. Lighting is the other one that's there. Home cinema is one that's, near and dear to the CEDIA crowd as well.
Yes.
That was my other thing I written down. So we're totally on the same page there.
But you guys didn't hit on my favorite one, leadership. It all starts with understanding within the industry, stronger together when we're all strong and educated. And that starts with the understanding as a leader we support within the industry education, which then supports skilled trades, which again feeds back into this being a viable career opportunity. This was a fantastic discussion. And now I know we're going to be so excited to get some of those amazing questions that I'm sure came in. So let's go ahead and see what people have asked us, okay? Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for attending and being here with us today. I see that we have some absolutely wonderful questions that came in, and so I have been documenting them, and I can't wait to have some answers come from Chris and from David. And again, welcome to you, David and Chris, and thank you for having us here, and thank you for attending. So on behalf of CEDIA, also thank you for being part of this wonderful event this week. We did get a question in about what is CEDIA doing right now, and what are we doing in the future to work more with vocational schools across the country to help with their supporting of the curriculum and this next generation of skilled workers. This is a wonderful question. About 2 years ago, we started on this already, believe it or not, and we've made wonderful strides, and we're poised to do something amazing as well. So if you remember about a year ago, we had something called the CSIT program, which was the CEDIA Systems Integration Technician Program. We rolled it out at headquarters in Indianapolis, and we had 8 students come through that 12-week hands-on learning program. It was wonderful to watch them. 2 of them immediately upon graduation were hired, and this became our proof of concept. Since that time, we had then rolled it in with the ANSI accreditation we're looking to have coming down the pike. David can talk about that in a minute. And worked with David's team to establish 2 brand new certifications that are getting ready for beta testing. So because of that, the curriculum had to change just a little bit from what we had done at the CSIT program. So right after having that happen at headquarters, and then in conjunction with all the other certification pieces and the curriculum established for those, we then tailored it, put those 2 pathways now called IST and CIT coming first, into the online platform, our academy at CEDIA, and then work to also establish a hybrid program that you will be able to do those classes online and then the other pieces in person. Well, what does that mean for your question? So for the vocational schools we're trying to partner with, and our local ones, especially in Indianapolis, Ivy Tech, and some of the ones outside that are either the career centers or the what you call community college in your local area, are going to hopefully work with us as an authorized training provider. So they will go ahead and grab the curriculum for us after we do a proper vetting of their facility, and go ahead and have those programs in their own areas for you to go ahead and take those classes. So this is getting right poised to roll out really quickly. I'm in Florida, and I know actually overseas too. We've talked about doing this in India and some of the other places, so stay tuned. David, I don't know if you wanted to add anything else about the IST and CIT really quickly.
Yeah, I'd just like to say it is a really exciting program. There's a number of schools that have a curriculum. You might see it called the EST curriculum, and Electronic Systems Technician. And CEDIA has partnered with some of those through the ESPO organization. And so those schools are transitioning now into the cabling and infrastructure, the CIT pathway, which we hope, having just surveyed the industry, these are the skills that are most needed now. It should provide them just with a really tangible step that they can add on potentially to their EST program. Maybe it's a year or two, or there's also possibilities to fast track this. If they want to do something intensive in a few weeks, come away and shoot for that first certification. So that there's flexible options there. Hands-on training is a big part of it. There's online as well. But if there are schools in your area that you think could do this, definitely get in contact with us here at CEDIA. We can help bridge that gap. Some of the schools that we work with have seen really high attendance for these programs. So getting the word out that there's these resources, I think is a great thing that members of our industry can do. If you want more people in your area, schools are a great place to look for them.
That's a great answer. We did have another question and I love this one. We've heard this one before too, about the idea of training and education within people's businesses, and looking behind it, beyond a typical benefits package. What do we do to keep and retain? We just did a panel about this as well, of keeping and retaining your rock stars, and what is the new norm and new way to go for these particular younger groups, especially, which is what we would, in the US especially, call our workforce. There is, no defined answer for this, but what I will say is, and this goes back to a leadership piece we just mentioned, our younger people coming into this particular industry need to know that this is a viable career opportunity in terms of the pathway that it can take you down. So it's not a one and done. So if you have people coming into your organization, you want to keep them by building and establishing a level that's very strong of trust. And that starts with you also investing in them as their professional development evolves. That means when they come in, having set pathways for them to each year attain other certifications or experiences, or go to a conference, or those kinds of things. They want to know that they are becoming marketable while they're working. They want to know that you have a belief in them, that their education and what happens with them is important. That is the trust that you're establishing with them. It's not just about the paycheck. They also want to hear that they're going to have somewhere to go in 5 or 10 years. So if this is not just going to be a stepping stone to something else, let them understand and know that within where you have them, there will be room for professional development and growth within your business. So I think the incentives are much more about things that you're doing and showcasing it as a leader that believes in them, and not just necessarily as a leader who's going to provide something to them that you might have seen, in your typical Acme 101 of hiring practices. I have to be honest. And they're a little more savvy than that. So that's what they're expecting. And Chris, I don't know if you would, if you wanted to add anything to that one as well.
Yeah. So the one thing in Dallas, we have the Peloton College, and the three of us had emailed about this last week, and I think it's one of very few, one of maybe just one, that basically is a vocational school with curriculum that allows for training of people that we need to be these skilled labor, be in the skilled labor force. And so that check out if you Google at some point today or in the next few days when you get a free moment, Google Peloton College and just see what they have. They have examples of full programs that are really vital, and I think it's gonna be something that really takes off to kind of the certification point that we're talking about. And the other thing is, I mentioned in the discussion earlier that I used to be a teacher. The district I taught in has they're starting, and this is happening more and more around the country. They have very specific schools or very specific programs and schools, actual campuses that are geared towards these vocational opportunities. So do some research, you could do some recruiting. We've talked a lot about that here, about going out and visiting these high school kids essentially, and going, hey, not only are what you're doing is that, this is actually a real viable career opportunity. We're a company that does these things, that we could hire you as you learn these skills, and these are the skills that you're going to be using that are you'll use right out of graduation. I think that's super important to do that research.
That's a good point. And this leads us to the next question too, related to sometimes what we've seen with people learning about our trade, being right next to the guy or gal in the truck, or right next to the guy and gal in the office, and that's what they learn. And sometimes it's fantastic, and other times not so much. And so sometimes we kind of roll the dice, if we're being honest. Putting all the practicum piece, the practical piece of the learning in conjunction with the actual sitting down and understanding the knowledge that goes into this industry, I think is super important. And there was a question here about creating a balance almost between your experienced people in the industry and more of an apprentice level team member. And sometimes how that can cause some real, angst between the two groups. And this is just something that we see in any industry, really. You have your more seasoned professionals. Often they don't want to hear about the newer things or, make those things applicable within the workplace, and vice versa. Sometimes someone brand new coming in, they don't feel that they're learning enough from somebody who is so seasoned and may be afraid to ask. So I think this question of how to create a balance is an important one. And I would say the best way to do that is through thoughtful communication, but also making opportunities for exchanges. Please, if you're owning a business and you know that this is something that has been a challenge for you, please consider having every month, once or twice, a brunch and learn, and have those people as highlighted, spotlighted individuals who are bringing something to the table that is shared with everybody there, and let them choose what that is. So here's a list of things that we'd love to have brought forward: sales things, marketing things. Hey, what's this about digital marketing versus what's this out here about laws that are changing on the coastal areas? Is this going to impact us? Find something that someone is interested in and let them highlight those things. You need to be the catalyst and the bridge to allow that communication and those thoughtful relationships to happen. Chris, can you speak to that within your own business about how this looks for you guys?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's you make such a wonderful point, because part of what happens is because we'll have every Wednesday morning, we have some sort of training, and it comes from, right now, it comes from the installation department. And it'll be somebody, and we say every week, there's something you want to learn, there's something you want to know, there's something you want to present, let us know, and you're in charge. We'll do, like, nobody is above learning something new or revisiting something that that needs to be touched up on, right? And if you have the culture within your company to not have the fear of going, you know what, I don't know really how to terminate Cat 6 very well. And if somebody goes, if they're afraid to do that, well, guess what happens on the job sites?
Mm-hmm.
You have messed up termination after messed up termination after messed up termination. But if you go, it's okay, let's just talk about these things, and then that gets better. And then the bonus part of all of that is you get retention, because people are invested in your company, because they're invested in themselves and their own learning. And that is how you maintain, develop, grow as a company. And it's so vital to have that in your culture as a company.
It's so true. It's this idea of what's in it for me. Well, let's flip the script. This question about what's in it for them. What's in it for them is personally what it means to them, to their eventual families or their families right then, to their sense of pride about what they're doing from a career perspective. And that if this is a real viable career opportunity, which we know it is, it has to be backed by the belief that that's what this looks like within a business. So just like any other organization, you would support professional development. Just like in any other organization, you would hope that there would be a price tag attached to that. Educating those that come from the workforce into our businesses is not a sunk cost. It is a level of understanding the idea of profitability when people are educated versus what you have within your workplace if potentially people are sitting there not knowing enough. And really, what kind of legacy is that also about your business? I mean, someone goes out the door and you're like, well, I didn't want to pay for education. Well, they still have your name on their t-shirt. So you got some buy-in here for what you did while they were with you. So it's just a whole, I think, a mindset about what you're willing and able to do and how you see it. So I think we're getting close to the end, but Chris, go ahead. I want to hear from you.
One more thing on the fact that you never know what somebody's going to be really, really excited about learning about, that then they become the expert of that particular nuanced field within your company. I think you never know what rock you turn over is going to spark a fire, in your employees.
That's true. Let's talk about really quickly. I know we're going to run out of time, but gosh, I love this topic so much. We could talk about this so many hours, and it goes into so many of the other topics that we talk about. Look at all the things we've hit on: leadership, best practices within business, understanding professional development, how you support the actual industry, how you're going to keep your rock stars. We're tackling all these topics. I wish we had even more time to do that. I want to ask you, David, within your understanding of how things have maybe changed and evolved within the industry, particularly with certification, what would you say to somebody who's looking to have some new people within the workforce coming into their business, and they're investing in them, and they're asking you, is it really important for them to go through a certification process? Or is this just something that's like, well, it's nice to have, but not necessarily something I would need to have for them? I mean, I knew it before. Can't I just teach it to them?
Yeah. Yeah, I think there's a few elements here. One of them is really, having the confidence on the job site. When you think about the first people coming in, it's a situation where they're working with, the lead technician under supervision. Uh, they might not necessarily ever see a client and be in that position there. But as you increase in your skills and abilities and also responsibilities there, there's an expectation that you can present the professionalism of that. And I think confidence is a big part of that, knowing that, because sometimes you've done things for, well, I feel like I know this. Do I really know this? Do I know it as well as that person who maybe brags that they know it? Having some tangible steps along the way to say, yes, thousands of people have taken this assessment, 70% passed. I'm one of those people. I can speak to this. I know this section. And then from here, I can move on to a different section. So confidence is one of those, motivation, that ladder of moving, of adding different things. I love the freedom of our industry, that you can go and create and move into different directions. I think that's really stimulating compared to some other industries.
Yes.
Sometimes it's overwhelming to know, I don't even know what to go. So taking small chunks of it is something that's helpful. And then, really honing in on specific things. And that's one of the things that we're trying to do for those more experienced professionals is, we have the course certifications, but something like home cinema, lighting, networking, things that require, 4 or 5 or more years of experience, better ways that they can, show that increasing specificity, little skills, maybe only one person on the company really knows this topic, so they can go for that.
Yeah, and it's funny that you say that too, because sometimes we also end with the certification piece. So some people are really diehard certification understanders of what that means, and I love that, and they get it. They got it years ago, and they've evolved with us. And then often they think, okay, we're finished, all right. And then I always come back and I say, remember that as things are changing, and particularly, you never know where the tide is going to turn, where you may end up getting a wonderful new career opportunity where a partner in your life ends up moving or wanting to move, and you have to follow along. And so suddenly you're in a whole other area with different laws, regulations, different things. It's not just about the certifications. I have to say also within CEDIA, what we try to explore, different topics, CEB 22, all the kinds of things we have out in white papers. We just developed a whole HDMI track. It's live in our LMS, our learning management system, the Academy now. These are things also in addition to other pathways and things we have that lead to certification that are super important for the evolution of the individual. So look at that. That just goes back to exactly what we're talking about. What do we do to keep employees engaged? That's not just maybe something we've seen that's traditional. Yeah, we do need to hit some of those things, but there's another level of it too, where it's like, we have white papers, we have things. I want to know what you are mostly interested in as well, so that I can help you understand how I can support that. David, you remember, I'm sure, one day when we were talking about all these things and we went down, we were in the training room, Steve Reese, our director of technical training, and Derek Abshire, our director of curriculum. We were sitting there and we were whiteboarding all of these things, and we were talking about, all right, we're gonna do the career pathways now. And we started, and then it was like, wait a minute. Now they go over here, and then they happen here. And it's like, why can't you just get these done? Everybody always says it's like, because as David said, the beauty of it is it starts from this foundational knowledge. And we want somebody to go from a basic to an intermediate to a higher advanced. To do that means it's not always just this linear approach. It is kind of like you get here, and then you have, the world is your oyster. You can move over, choose your own adventure over here, and then you can go up to the left, to the right. This is the beauty of this industry. You hit it right there, David. But to define it makes it a little bit more difficult. So I always say to a business owner, be open to those exchanges, be open to the diversity of the potential that's out there for your workforce. Look in places that you may never have looked at before. Understand that we're broadening the scope of who this looks like in this industry, and reach out to them. All backgrounds. And I think that's an important thing to note too. When you're looking for your next rock star and you're retaining and all those things, did you also understand that maybe there's other places to look than maybe what traditionally we would have thought of? Okay, we have 1 minute left. Any last thoughts from either of you? Chris, final thoughts on the topic.
I think that there's a lot of potential here, and as you guys have mentioned, and you guys are doing such a wonderful job at CEDIA. CEDIA is amazing, and the viability and the I don't know, the passion that you guys are able to provide for everybody here and all the integrators, and especially doing this all virtually. And I'd love to be there in person and everything. I'm sure everybody would be, but yeah, this has been wonderful. I think this is wonderful information, and thank you to CEDIA.
Thank you so much, Chris. Well, don't forget, we're in Indy next year, so we're going to see you here, and that goes for everybody. We're going to walk you through. We'll give you anyone a tour at the headquarters. We'll come on through. I know we're going to have a wonderful year in Indy next year. Absolutely. David, what do you have?
I just am really excited about where we're at right now. You think about, the schools, the businesses, the job seekers, the people who don't even know about our industry yet. There's a disconnection, and it's always been there. I feel like we're at a place now where, some of the training, the certification, getting on the same page with what the business owners need, getting that message back to the schools, back to the counselors, back to the potentials out there. I feel like things are starting to speak the same language, see the opportunities there. And so it's just a really exciting time to be working in this space.
It is, isn't it? It's almost like we said like the climb up the mountain, and then we all looked at each other and we're like, wow, it all came together. Sort of certifications, these career pathways, all of it is together. These wonderful thought leaders. I am blessed every single day that I get to work with the team at CEDIA, and just the education team particularly, but just in general. But of course, the lifeblood of our organization, the volunteers, the members that volunteer their time. We could not do it without them. So I'm very blessed as well. And I just love doing this panel across the board. This was a wonderful group. I feel very blessed that we were asked to host this and be involved in this. Thank you so much. And again, I want to thank everybody for being involved with CEDIA Expo this year and sticking with us. It was a different year. It's been a little bit of a rough few months here, but we're going to get through it, and hope to see every single person at our wonderful event, whatever this is going to look like next year. And hopefully some of it will be in Indy in person. And now I know we're going to be so excited because all of us are going to go watch the CE Pro All-Star Band, right? And rock out, because it's coming up, right? It's like right now after here. Chris is already into it. Our band director, he's ready to go. You're going back to your roots.
Scratching an itch.
That's right. Wonderful. So thank you so much, everybody, for being here with us today. And I hope to hear from all of you. Please reach out to us if you have any further questions. And again, thank you for letting us host this amazing panel. It was a wonderful experience. Have a great day.